These aren't slogans to me. We've got clear plans to do this. Take the FBI. There's 35,000 employees in the FBI. 20,000 of them are back office bureaucrats. They're going to go home immediately, find honest work in the private sector.
What about the CIA, sir? That's where all the pedophiles are.
Well, CIA is a major problem, but they shouldn't even exist outside of the military. So I'm talking about the reorganization plan. There's a whole long list of agencies that we're going to shut down and reorganize. But just to finish explaining how it's going to work with the FBI.
The Department of Defense has 5,000 pedophiles in it that in 2019 got arrested by Trump's administration.
Well, you know, they deserve to actually be held accountable. I'm going to answer this gentleman's question first.
Go ahead.
We're going to reorganize that to the 15,000 cops on the front lines. Speaking of the issue you raised, let's talk about it. Those 15,000, we're going to move them to the U.S. Marshals or to the DEA, both of which actually have been far more effective at fighting child sex trafficking rings in this country than the failed Bureau of Investigation. So we'll improve effectiveness at the same time that we're shutting down the bureaucracy. We'll move them to the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network at the U.S. Treasury, which frankly is going to be more effective with expertise to go after the future SBFs and the FTXs, the financial fraudsters of the world. And so that gives you a sense. The Department of Education, the small sliver that's focused on vocational education, we're going to move that to the Department of Labor, where it belongs. Then the $80 billion that's being spent elsewhere, send most of that back to parents, to states, and to the people who then actually can have parents who decide where they send their kids to school. And a small sliver of that budget will more than cover what states say they lack in the funding to put 3 armed security guards in every school across this country. That's how you protect our children, to make sure that terrorism never happens again. And so I appreciate you asking that question, but I want you all to know this, and that's why I love Iowa, because you get good questions about this. These aren't slogans for me. This is a reality of how we're going to run the country. This business that we're in now, like most small businesses, the main obstacle to expanding is actually filling those open positions. We have more open positions than we have people looking for work. So in many ways, this will actually stimulate our economy by providing an American workforce, not a foreign workforce, but an American workforce that's wrongfully being trapped and misused in that federal bureaucracy. So I hope that answers your question, sir. Thank you.
Vivek,
Thank you very much. Yeah, you go next and we'll come to you.
I got 2 questions, if that's okay.
Briefly.
All right, my name is Nathan Edward Trausch, N-A-T-H-E-N, Edward, T-R-A-U-S-C-H. So I agree with you on mostly everything. You're like the perfect candidate. It's outstanding. But you're running on this thing where it's like, we are in trouble. World War III we're bombing Yemen. We're going to war with Russia pretty much. We bombed Yemen with Britain, who we got our independence from in 1776. So you got interviewed on ABC Way TV, Channel 31. You said if Trump didn't get the nomination, or if he did get the nomination, that you would not be his vice president. So our country is in dire trouble. Why wouldn't you want to be in his ear? The man's 79. He might die, so if he passed away, you would be the president. Yeah. So if our country is in dire danger, why wouldn't you want to be in his ear, the vice and vice president?
Well, look, thanks, sir. Nathan, I appreciate that you asked me your second question, too, just briefly, so I can address both, and then I'll go to this gentleman.
Yes, it was back on the child trafficking. So will you get more arrests with human traffickers?
Yes.
And will you match the death penalty, just like the Trump administration did?
The maximum penalty under the law. That's what we want to actually do. And what I will say is this.
It's legal.
Well, if it's legal, then it's the maximum extent of the law. But a lot of that's driven by states. But at the federal level, here's what I think we need. What we're missing is enforcement of the law. It's not that people are afraid of what the maximum penalty is. It's that they're just not being caught because we have the failed Bureau of Investigation that's not actually getting them. And so I'm not going to be, same thing I told the other guy, I don't just like slogans. I'm going to give you the clear plan of what we're actually going to do to solve the problem. Use our military on the southern border. It's where most of the cross-border trafficking is taking place. Forget the FBI, which has failed to do this. Overstaff actually relative to now the U.S. Marshals, which have been far more effective. And then when we talk about child sex trafficking, which is a major issue in this country.
Human trafficking
all over. We have a pornography problem in this country as well, a demand side issue that we need to address as well.
Child porn in our own government.
And I think that any kid, just like they can't smoke a cigarette by the age of 18 or have a drink of alcohol by the age of 21, they shouldn't be using an addictive social media product by the age of 16 either. So if we're going to get to the root cause, that's how we're going to do it. And I think that that's a big part of addressing both the law enforcement piece, but also the uglier underbelly of the demand side of this as well. And so I believe in both those things, Nathan. And on your first question, which I want to just address briefly before I go to this gentleman here. So look, what I've said is I'm not a plan B person. I'm in this for the country. We've gotten about 6 questions in the last week about whether I would consider Donald Trump as my vice president.
Why would the
My answer is
establishment?
that I would.
Why would the establishment let you in but not him?
So look, I think it's a good question to ask. I mean, look, I think this system has made clear they will not let this man get anywhere near the White House again. And it's disgusting. Nobody has stood more strongly against that than I have. This week, I submitted an amicus brief to the Supreme Court, making what I saw as the best legal arguments for why they need to overturn Colorado's disastrous ruling. Because frankly, I don't know what arguments this team is going to make, but we owe it to this country for the Supreme Court to hear the best ones, to make sure the right thing is done. I've issued demands, legal demands of the Biden administration to really tell the people what did Biden and Merrick Garland tell Jack Smith in those investigations. I have stood up against this at every step. I think we Republicans, every one of us, needs to remove ourselves from any ballot where Donald Trump is forcibly removed, because that's how we prevent election interference in our own primary. But we have to open our eyes that they're not going to let this man get anywhere near that White House again. They've made this clear. And the reality is, we have an America First movement that has to outlive this year. It didn't start in 2016. It started in 1776. And we owe it to our founding fathers and to our country to make sure we have another 250 years still left and then some. So Donald Trump was an excellent president. We love the man because he got this fight started. But now it is our job, my duty as your next president, to finish it. That's why I'm in this race. That's why we're going to get that job done. It's going to take somebody from the outside to do this. We're in the middle of a war.